tape in front of the live
And we
studio.
are live once again from the Poetry Bar, 7B.
Yep.
And today we're talking about one of the most important albums
Yes.
that we ever fucking talk about.
Definitely.
And this is the Rockshow episode 49.
Yep.
And welcome back. What are we talking about today?
Welcome back, everybody, to the Rockshow. What we're talking about today is one of the most important albums ever in the history of rock and roll, and that's the Rolling Stones' Exile on Main Street. This is part of a new format we're doing where we're going to be talking about the making of certain albums by certain bands. Instead of giving a whole history of the band, we'll talk about one specific album. And I wanted to talk about this one because personally this is one of my favorite albums of all time. It's in my top 10. It's a great album to get lumped up to.
This is a great fucking album.
I don't recall too many sober moments with this album, but it's a great album. To me, it's the Stones' best album. It was at a height of a totally decadent period for the band in the early 70s.
From Off the Rock to Soul Survivor.
Rocks Off to Soul
One
Survivor.
of the best fucking albums.
18 tracks.
18 tracks.
It's a sloppy, muddy production. I'm going to go into the making of this, how they got this sound and what they did.
But they started this album in 1969.
Yes.
So this wasn't an album that they were like, oh, wait, we're going to do this album. This album took time.
You know, the Stones always had leftovers from other albums.
Yeah, but this is to the point that they even left England and most of the album was down the south of France.
Yes.
So,
the seeds of this album.
And then when the album came out, the final recording was down in Los Angeles.
Yep, they remixed it there.
This album traveled.
Yes, it did. It went from England to France to LA.
Because what happens? What happened to the Rolling Stone in England?
Well, they were tax exiles. Okay, the reason was because by 1971, the tax rate for the Stones was 93%. They were broke. They were broke. They had,
but why were they broke?
Because
they
didn't want to be broke. That's why they left.
But they weren't making money.
Alan Klein.
These people were stealing their money.
They had been involved with manager Alan Klein. Okay, they were suing to get out of their contract with him. He was gaining control of the earliest stuff when they were on Abco and Decca and stuff like that.
But they were a commercial success. They already had but
the contract was bad, and he owned the rights to a lot of songs, and they were trying to get control of that.
Who does this sound like? The Kinks.
There was a lot of bands at that time got ripped off. People think, at the height of the British invasion, of Beatlemania and Stones mania, you thought these guys were making millions.
Oh yeah.
On paper they were, but in reality they weren't. The managements were taking
shit on.
Yeah. Now, like you say, this.
Danny, what's up, baby?
Hello out there.
Up.
All right. Exile on Main Street came out on May 12th, 1972, but the seeds of it actually started in 1969 and 1970 over at Olympic Studios in England, and also at Mick Jagger's Stargrove's Country House in England. What they used at Stargrove's was a mobile studio and a truck. It was something that they were used to, and because of the tax situation, they decided to leave England. And that's why you get that Exile on Main Street name. Yeah. And they were going to go to the south of France to live. Now, Keith Richards rented a villa called Nelcott, and they would bring that mobile studio truck down to the south of France, all right? Keith would live in the house, and they would record downstairs in the basement. Now, this was an old villa right on the water. I think it was built in 1899, and during the Second World War, it was actually used as a Gestapo headquarters.
Wow.
Okay, and there was lots of things in the basement there. The way the basement was lined up was it was just separate rooms all over the place. It wasn't just one big basement. And they found swastikas carved into the walls and weird shit like that.
But you ever heard the story that they had to go to different rooms to get different acoustic?
Yeah.
Which is amazing. I find that amazing.
Now, the rest of the band, the whole thing, how they recorded this was crazy. The rest of the band was living in the south of France, but in different locations. And, Mick had just married Bianca Jagger. She was staying in Paris. Okay, I think they had a child on the way. like I said, the basement was a series of rooms that they were going to use. They were going to run the wires from the truck outside into the basement of this house. And it was hot. It was humid down there. The guitars would go out of tune in 2 seconds. They'd play a song and be out of tune because of the climate. It was also a situation where if you were trying to control what was going on, what they were playing, like if you were a sound engineer like Andy Johns, if you had to give a direction, you had to go into every room and tell them what was going on, you know? Now, Nelcott was just on the water. It was close to the town. And these recording sessions they would do would generally start around 8 o'clock at night and go to like 3:30 in the morning.
Oh, they didn't stop recording. That's what they did in the house. Like, some of the guys said we would go 24 hours or we go.
Sometimes they did. You know, and everybody was kind of unreliable in the sense that you couldn't get the whole band there in one shot. Okay?
But let's talk about how fucked up was this place.
I mean, who
it was like a drug haven.
Keith Richards rented the house, and you know this was Keith at pretty much the height of his heroin addiction. He was very heroin addicted at this point. There was a lot of other things going on, a lot of cocaine, weed, all kinds of drugs were going on. They were passing around bottles of Jack Daniels like it was on.
They had Jack Daniels, like they talked about it. Oh my God.
Now guys like Bill Wyman, the bass player in the Stones, and even Mick Jagger to some degree were frustrated because it was hard to get everybody together in one spot. The recording, the playing would be in fits and starts. They would work around each other. If somebody wasn't there to do a part, they would come later. So a lot of times, like Wyman would sit out, and in the, you know, in some of the credits, it's like he's hardly playing at all. Like you got Keith on bass, things like that. Now there were lots of visitors passing through here during the recordings. You had William Burroughs, you had Graham Parsons, you had John Lennon, many other people.
And they all came by because why? It was the Beatles. It was the Rolling Stone, and these guys had a house that everybody described. It was like a drug haven.
It was a drug haven, basically. There was thousands of dollars of heroin going into that house every week.
But Keith Richards was like saying that he would go out with his family in the daytime, this and that. And then everybody complained that Keith Richards would go downstairs to the basement.
Yeah.
And it was like hours and hours of recording this fucking album.
Yeah, I mean, there were times when Richards was on and they were playing, they would get it down. There were times he was out of it and they'd have to work around him. There were times he was with his family. He had a boat.
Yeah.
Right? And everyone was like, don't get on the boat with Keith. You know, driving around on the water right there. Okay, now, I mean, by July of 71, Graham Parker was asked to leave, okay? It's kind of like legendary in a way because he was a friend of Keith's, and the amount of drugs they did together is incredible. But even with that, Parsons was asked to leave by Keith because he was so obnoxious. The French police were starting to catch on what was going on over there.
And that's it.
In these recording sessions, supposedly, and I think Anita Pallenberg is on the record with this, saying like, you know, you could hear them 4 miles away in the town. Wow. Okay, so it must have been pretty loud. A lot of times Keith was too wasted to record, but like I said, it was all worked around him. And this is a Keith album.
Yeah, this is
right. It's a Richards album.
But he was like, everybody was playing with him, like to the point that they were like, he would go downstairs and play for hours.
Yeah.
To the point that he either passed out or they passed out. That's
I mean, there's a famous story where they were recording something. Andy Johns, the sound engineer, thought they got the take. Keith looked like he was falling asleep. It was in the middle of the morning, early morning, I think. They had been up all night. And he fell asleep. And Andy Johns says, all right, I'm going to go home. And he would have to drive like an hour or something back. And as soon as he got in the door, Richards was calling him, saying, where the fuck are you?
Yeah.
All right, I got a couple of tracks I want to lay down. So he had to go all the way back.
It was like very, like they did it once or twice, and it was crazy.
Yeah. Now, a track like one of the most famous songs on the album is Happy.
Happy,
Keith Richards song. Oh, yeah. And it was recorded when Keith actually showed up early one day for a recording session. All right, and Bobby Keys was on sax, Keith on guitar, and producer Jimmy Miller on drums. That's all you got on that album.
Yeah.
On that song, I'm sorry, is that lineup right
Every
there.
album changed. Like the lineup changed a lot.
Yeah. Now, Shine a Light, okay, is also a track that Jimmy Miller played drums on.
Shine a Light was great.
Jimmy Miller was the producer for the album. He'd worked with them before. Now, Bill Wyman did not really enjoy the recording of this at Nelcott. The Stones kind of, like I say, they separated into two camps. It was like Keith Richards, Jimmy Miller, Bobby Keys, and Mick Taylor and engineer Andy Johns were in one camp, and Wyman, Charlie Watts, and Jagger were in the other camp. You know what the difference was? It was who got more fucked up.
Yeah,
all right.
they definitely got fucked up.
Now, I mean, Jagger and Wyman, they would partake in things, but not to the extent of these other guys.
To me, my favorite guy is Bobby Keys. Like
Bobby Keys is amazing.
Bobby Keys, like, so I got there, I was hanging out.
The beautiful French women.
Beautiful candy dressed women.
Yep.
There was music. There was drug. What the fuck are you gonna do? I was like, oh my god.
I know.
That was
and he was
great.
like a Southern cracker type of
He was
dude.
fantastic. He was fantastic.
Yeah.
But this album, like they sat there, they did this album.
Yep.
They wrote songs, and this album is probably one. This album was in the UK number one, US number 2.
Yep.
Very impressive number.
But it without jumping ahead too much, basically when it came out, it did well, but then kind of dropped off the map because it was a double album, and it had gotten mixed reviews, and that would change. And I'll go into that a little bit after.
It's one of the greatest album they took out. This album, from the first song to the last song, this is a masterpiece. It's a perfect album. Like if you want a rock album, you want to buy a rock album, go get this album.
Yeah. Now, by December of 1970, you're out of it, man. You are a long time. Good. Oh man, what am I gonna do with you? Pass
It'll be
out?
okay.
You gonna pass out?
I won't pass out, but if you bring me some fried chicken.
All right.
I was hanging out with Keith Richards before the show.
That's what. He gave you some shit. Yeah, that's good.
No, but this album, like, Mike, come on. Like, when you talking about this, that documentary.
The Exile.
People, you guys got to see the documentary on YouTube about the Exile.
It's just called Exile.
And it's like, you got fucking Marky Mark, you got Tulio Benito's, you got every single actor talking about this fucking...
Scorsese.
I'm like... I was ready to call and say, why did the Irishman was so bad, you asshole?
The Irishman didn't win shit last night.
He didn't win nothing. I'm telling you, that's good as people think.
Yeah.
It was like a good movie.
It was a good movie. It's not a great movie. It's not one of his best, but it's a great movie in the sense of not too many good movies out there anyway. But
so like they're left like most of the time when somebody lives in England.
Yeah.
Like a band like the Warriors, so pretty much say fuck you.
Yeah.
We ain't paying this, we're leaving.
Yeah.
Well, most of these bands disappear.
Well, the English market is big.
But they get destroyed. How come people would still listen to the Rolling Stone even though after this?
Well, because they were that big.
They were that big.
They had that many fans. They outlasted the Beatles. In the 60s, there was this thing like the music is going to cause a revolution and change the world.
Oh, it could have easily.
It never happened.
But
and then you had this decadence that came in the early 70s, a lot of drugs, a lot of drinking. The Stones were at the forefront of that. And this album to me, and I can't rave more about it because it's one of my favorite albums, but it oozes decadence. It oozes heroin. It's like heroin coming out of the grooves on the records.
But this album is like a country album. A blues
it's everything.
Album.
Well, it's country,
it's
blues, rock and roll.
It's like everything.
It's got everything on it.
This is like to
and
me.
It's got country, but it's Stones country.
It's
a Stones country song is just something different. The way that they interpret country music and spit it back out to us, it's a different way.
But to me, I think this is a perfect album.
It is.
If you want different gender, you want different music, different sound, the Stones deliver.
Absolutely.
This might be one of the greatest albums ever made. That's what I'm just saying.
I mean, it is in the top 10, I would say.
It's in the top 5 for me,
Yeah,
baby.
yeah, definitely. Now, by December of 71, the basic tracks were recorded at Nelcott, the Villa, all right? And then the band decided to go to Los Angeles and finish up the recordings there. They went to Sunset Sound Recorders for the overdubs and some fine-tunings they wanted to do. Now, the story is that French authorities tossed them out, okay? Mick Jagger says that didn't happen. Richards is kind of vague on it, but apparently,
I think it happened.
Apparently the French knew exactly what was going on there. You know, this place was where this villa was wedged in between two drug capitals. In the west, you had Marseille, which was a heroin capital.
Yeah.
Okay. And then on the east, it's not too far from Italy, where you had mafia running things and shit. So, you know, a lot of drugs going right through that area.
There was drugs going because the guy, most of those guys said, oh, there was so much drugs. They were kind of places, like they were talking about the drugs.
Yeah.
Like these guys were talking about how much drug was there. And you know what's the other thing that was there?
What?
Jack Daniel booze. They drank a lot of whiskey.
Yeah, I mean,
like there were empty bottles everywhere, like I would say.
And one thing they were doing too, Bill Wyman points it out in that documentary, is that they were tax exiles living in France, but they weren't used to French culture. They couldn't speak French.
No.
They didn't like the food that much, and they imported a lot of food from England over just because they couldn't get used to everything. It's a big problem.
They should have called us. We're professional in French food.
Yeah.
We would have ordered them a nice meal.
Absolutely. Oui, oui, oui.
Oui, oui.
Now, Jagger, during the Nelcott sessions, he wasn't that involved with things. But when it came to these overdubs, he took over. And he had brought in keyboardist Billy Preston in the studios, and also Dr. John. Okay, on keyboards to add some layers, some keyboard layers to the tracks that they already had. Now, during these sessions, they also visited Aretha Franklin. Mick Jagger went to visit her as she was in an evangelical church shooting a film, okay, which became the movie Amazing Grace. It's like a concert movie.
Yeah, that's
and
a good movie.
It was an inspiration because when he saw the gospel music, he said, we could use some of this on the album.
Oh, there was total gospel music.
Yeah. Now, you had like Tumbling Dice, Loving Cup,
great song.
Let It Loose, Shine a Light. They've all got gospel tinges to them. Now, between December of 71 and March of 72, there was a long, drawn-out battle kind of between Mick and Keith as to the direction of this album. It was a push and pull.
Yeah.
Wyman would lose his mind over it. He would be like, I can't take this anymore. You guys are fighting over every little fucking thing. But what they came out with was a double album, which the record company didn't want them to do. Okay, because double albums traditionally don't sell as well. This double album sold pretty good. But what you have is a murky, dark snapshot of the band at that time. Okay, the decadence of what the Stones were living through, specifically Keith Richards, and the sound is a murky kind of production. Mick is on record saying he hates the production.
He does hate it. I was surprised
I don't agree with
by
him.
that.
I don't agree with him. I
He
think
hated
the whole
album. I thought it was great.
I think the whole thing with it really being a bad production is wrong.
No, it's bad.
You think it's a bad production?
No, I think he was wrong. I think it's a bad call. Like, first of all, so they were doing this album. It started in 1969, and there was like, you had a group of people filming their part here. You had another group of people playing on this side.
Yeah.
You had fucking Richards play here. Then you have Mick Jagger here.
Yeah.
When you bring something into the studio and everything makes it just right, guess what you have? A hit album.
Yeah.
And he was totally...
Well, I think Jagger didn't have a problem with the songs. I think it just was the sound of the production. Like, if you listen to, like I've got right here, this is the 2010.
You got it right here.
This is the 2010 re-release that has the original album with the original artwork and a second CD of unreleased materials, which is damn good stuff. most of it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, Jagger, I think, still says that it's not the greatest album because it didn't have any hit singles. But to me, it's their masterpiece. I think most Stones fans agree with that, you know. There's elements of everything on it. Like I said, gospel, country, blues.
There's a little bit of everything in this album.
Yeah.
This is an incredible album.
And there's also something almost sinister about the album. When you listen to it, there's a darkness there underneath the surface. And you could even hear things like, you know, bottles clinking and stuff in the background with some stuff. You know what I mean?
I heard that. Whoa.
Yeah. Now, the packaging of the album would be interesting. All right, Jagger wanted an album that would kind of show the band as outlaws, using like blues music as a weapon. They approached designer John Van Hammerswald and his photographer Norman Sheath, and they got in touch with documentary photographer Robert Frank. All right. Now, they would take pictures of them all over the place. Frank would take pictures of them walking around L.A., particularly Jagger. They also used like freak sideshow pictures on the cover. Now, one guy, you can see it here, right here. This dude.
That's great.
That's Three Ball Charlie. Now, on the re-release, they made it a bigger picture on the back. Okay, this guy was a sideshow performer that could put 3 balls in his mouth. I think it was like a cue ball, a baseball, and a tennis ball.
But you know, before the album was out, there was like billboard.
Of that. Yeah, that's where they got it from.
And Mick Jagger was bitching about it. I said, dude, that's a great. You gotta. And people talk about the thing. They always talk about your album. How can you get like that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think everybody was kind of like all over the place. Everybody was really wasted.
Everybody was all over the place.
Yeah, really, really wasted. They used. They had in the original album. They had these postcards. Now, it's very hard to find these postcards.
Oh, yeah, you got some
and
postcards.
I've actually got 2 of them here. There was 12 that came out with the album, okay, in the original production. And on the back, there's like little wise-ass little
Lumped
statements
up.
here in the back. You're supposed to send a postcard with the Stones on it to your mother, you know. But it's hard to find those. When they did the reproduction in 2010 on the CD, they didn't do the postcards. I wish they did.
They should have done the postcard at the time. They were great.
Yeah, I know.
The postcard was like, holy shit. You know, you can send it. Who wouldn't love a postcard to cover of a Rolling Stone song?
Of course.
But I think, to me, I also think that cover was like very controversial.
Yeah, well, it had freak show, sideshow people on it. There was a guy named like Corkscrew Johnny or something like that, or the Human Corkscrew. It's controversial. They've always had controversial album covers. There's some girls, they got in trouble for that a few years later because they used different celebrities. Lucille Ball sued them for using her face on the cover. May of '72, the album would be released, and it was released to mixed reviews right off the bat.
People loved it.
Most people said it was kind of uneven or no direction. I think that's the way the album was meant to be. Direction.
I think it was because
it was like these little vignettes of songs. You know, Lenny Kaye, who was writing for Rolling Stone at the time before he was in Patti Smith's band, ended his review saying, you know, the great Stones album of their mature period is yet to come, meaning this is not it. Okay? He would change his mind later on. Now, Robert Christgau, who was writing for Newsday at the time, he had a good review of it. He called it a fagged out masterpiece, best album of '72.
This was a fucking masterpiece. Yeah. I was born in '72, so this album was the album.
Right.
This is the album. If you had a record collection, you had to have it. Because it was a masterpiece. Yeah. It was a... Right. There's not a bad song on it.
No. There isn't. There's no real hit single, but it doesn't matter. They weren't going for that. Tumbling Dice and Happy were released as singles, but they didn't sell a lot.
For years and they didn't care. Yeah. And it's like, we're going to take this album, just like the Street Hot song, we're going to be as fucked up as we want to be, and we're going to take out this album, and it's going to be a great album.
Absolutely. Now, by the late 70s, everybody would reassess their opinions on this. It was considered a classic. It took a few years, but you know, between radio airplay and people finally picking up on it, maybe it was a double album. It was a little expensive when it came out. By the end of the decade, everybody realized this was a masterpiece right here. I mean, because if you look at where they went, they start the decade with Sticky Fingers and Exile on Main Street next. But after that, it's kind of like all downhill in some ways, ups and downs. The next album would be Go Ted Soup. That's a good album. Is it as good as Main Street? No. Okay. It's Only Rock and Roll, Black and Blue. Some Girls is a good album. But then they ended the decade with Tattoo You, which is, to me, only about half good. So, by then, I think people were looking back a few years and they were saying, you know what, we kind of overlooked that album. That was a really, really good album. Now, also what had happened is Alan Klein, who was their former manager, he sued them over certain tracks that were recorded at Olympic Studios when they were under contract with him. Now, that would be like, I believe, Sweet Virginia, Loving Cup, All Down the Line, Shine a Light, and their version of Stop Breaking Down. Unfortunately, they would be sued and lose that. They would have to give him royalties from Exile because he was still under contract with them.
That was crazy.
Yeah, and what he did was he actually used the money he got and put out like another Hot Rocks collection to make even more money. So he ripped them off. But
I think most of the managers that they had ripped them off into. And you know what's funny?
Until they got rid of Klein.
They were also under the Rolling Stone level.
They had a label for a little while, the Rolling Stone label, yeah.
And they're like, fuck this. Like, it was crazy. It was crazy. How did you don't get that?
It was a battle. It was a battle over their music. And 2010, the album would be reissued on CD. It had been out on CD before, but they came out with this deluxe edition, like I just showed you right here. Okay? Everybody should get this, all right? The leftover tracks that make the second CD are incredible. There's a song called Pass the Wine, Plundered My Soul, a song called I'm Not Signifying. There's like alternate takes of Loving Cup and Soul Survivor and All Down the Line. It's like a whole other great album on top of the original album. So I recommend everybody get that. What do you say, Rob? You awake?
I'm always awake.
All right. That's all I got. That's the album.
But that album, we got so much more.
Go ahead, talk.
Do you think they were using heroin and all that shit, what they were doing this album?
Yeah, they were.
There was a lot of drug talk, because there was one point where they came to Los Angeles that they stopped. They were trying to fix themselves.
Well, yeah, I mean, going to LA, they weren't going to have the same.
Because think about it, they couldn't go back to England because they were exiled.
No.
They come back to Los Angeles.
They rented a mansion in Bel Air. They were all together.
But they were there, and it was like, holy shit, these guys are making this album.
Yeah.
And they were still getting fucked up to the point that I think everybody went to rehab after a while.
Well, Keith would eventually quit heroin about 6 or 7 years later. It would take almost a very, very, very serious arrest that he had gotten in Canada, I think around 77 or so, 76, 77, that would wake him up. Everybody should read his book. It's called Life. He wrote.
He got a great book. You ever hear about his thing about cocaine? If you were to do cocaine, make the purest kind of cocaine, not dirty cocaine?
No. Yeah, story.
No, he wrote like, you can get the pure one. Don't get the shit that's all mixed up. Get something that's so pure that you can do it forever, but when you get the shit that's mixed up, it'll kill you.
Well, yeah, because you don't know what it's covered.
You don't know what it's covered. Yeah. It's like there's people dying all the time. But these guys, think about what they did.
Yeah.
They left England.
Yeah.
They went to fucking France. They did this album from room to room because they needed a certain different sound.
It wasn't just about the sound. It was like these rooms were small. You couldn't fit everybody in one room. So you had them all over the place.
And then you take this whole album and then you go to Los Angeles to finally mix it up.
Yeah.
And it's a fucking masterpiece.
Oh yeah. It just shows how good they are.
And then this album was taken to the point that in 2010, they added 10
28 years later.
They added 10 more songs to it.
Yeah.
What do you think about those songs that they added?
I think they're great. Plundering My Soul is fantastic. I'm Not Signifying. I mean, the production on them are actually good. So they actually got to a point where they might have included these songs on the album.
Yeah.
But I think they really could only do, because of time constraints back then, you could only do a certain amount of songs on an album. So, you know, they probably ran out of room.
So this was 18 songs on the album.
And
one of the most incredible albums.
Yeah.
Like, if you are a record person and you think you're a fucking masterpiece, you need to own this album. This
Without
is
a
a
doubt. No
must
question.
own album for any person that's a collector. For any person that's a Rolling Stone person.
Yep.
Everybody want to own the White Album, but they never heard it. You need to get this fucking album.
Beatles White. You talk about the Beatles?
The Beatles White Album. Everybody owned it, but I know half of these fucking people have never heard it. But a bunch of
A
assholes.
lot of people buy and don't even listen to it.
My favorite Beatles album is the Lonely Sgt. Pepper Lonely Band.
Sgt. Pepper's album. That's your favorite?
To me, that's my favorite album.
It's not mine. I like the White Album. I like.
I can listen to a White Album if I do a line of cocaine.
I like Revolver. Oh, yeah,
Revolver was great.
Yeah, Rubber Soul was okay. Yeah, I mean the Beatles is, to me, it's.
To me, I love the Rolling Stone better than the Beatles.
Me too.
I love the
too.
Kings better than the Beatles.
Me too.
The Rolling Stone is one of the. And you know what? When they made the fucking Exile on Main Street, they were already rock star.
Oh, they were huge.
But they were broke.
Because
they
of
were
the
getting
taxes.
their money fucking stolen also.
And also, Alan Klein had ripped them off. Yeah.
They had a bad contract. They had a contract so bad that they couldn't even pay their taxes. Think
I
about
mean, they
that.
would take advance money to live on, probably, that they got from the record companies. But they're, the labels didn't want them to do a double album. But they said, no, we're doing a double album.
They had to.
They had to. They had a lot of material.
Because you know what that album did for them? That did for nobody else?
What?
It's gave them the freedom.
Yes. They had a lot of freedom.
And think about it, these guys are guys from England. They come to Los Angeles and they cut the album. The Los Angeles made an album.
Well, they did the overdubs there. Yeah.
How great was it that they came here and did that album?
Yeah.
And how great is it that
Fantastic.
he just came and was like, he mixed it here and everything came out good.
Yeah. But they were mixing it for like 3 or 4 months.
They were also mixing since 1969.
69,
and the
technically,
album
yeah.
came in 72.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the most important albums for anybody's record
Yeah, I
collection.
can't emphasize it enough. I mean,
Correct.
everybody should have this fucking album. If you don't have it, you're not familiar with it, just go on YouTube right now. Check out some songs.
Check out the
gonna love it.
documentary.
Yeah,
YouTube got one of the best
YouTube
documentary.
Exile. It's
My
called. It's like an hour long.
I'm not gonna lie to you, I was fucked up for this show. I got lumped up.
Yeah, it's all right. It's what we do.
I was fucked up like a Chinaman on Tuesday.
Oh wait, now speaking of Chinaman, I heard you went to Wohop last night.
That was delicious.
What'd you have?
I had the spare ribs. I had the wonton.
Yeah.
I had the black bean. I had the shrimp and black
You went
bean.
with Blockelman?
I went with Aquaman.
Yeah.
The black Aquaman.
The Black Aquaman.
We had a good
Eric?
time.
Yep.
But
I love
it
Wohop.
was great. But guys, I gotta tell you, you gotta listen to the show. We're doing a good job. We're doing so much research. Mike is doing a lot of research. This guy's a fucking rock expert. Me, I'm a clown.
We love you anyway.
But we do what we can, but you understand the importance of this fucking album.
Yeah, definitely.
Like,
if you're not
these
familiar
people-
with it, get familiar with it.
These people told fucking England to go fuck themselves
Yeah, they did.
and made a masterpiece.
Yeah.
And I don't like the French, but at the end of the day, the album came to Los Angeles, which made,
In French.
which is like,
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. There you go. Right,
So what's your song of the week for this album?
Oh man, I'm so hard to pick a favorite song off that album.
Great album.
If I had to pick one song, Ventilator Blues. Ventilator Blues.
Great song.
And it turns out they only did that live one time in their
Why?
whole career. What's strange about this album is they immediately after it was released, they went out on tour, but they hardly did songs off it. They would do other albums. they left a lot out. I don't know why.
I'm gonna tell you why. Because Mick Jagger did not like the album.
Maybe they just
Once
wanted to
he
put
made this album, he shitted on this album.
Maybe he wanted to put the experience behind him. But like Ventilator Blues, they did in Canada, I think, one night. It might have been Vancouver. I don't recall. I think it was Canada. They opened the show with the song and never did it again. Now, back in the early 2000s, when the 40 Licks album came out in 2002,
That's a great album.
yeah,
too.
they brought back some songs that they hadn't done from this album for a while because they were spotlighting certain albums. During, what was it, the Martin Scorsese movie, Shine a Light.
Oh, yeah, Shine a Light. That was great.
Which is a good movie. But the only thing I don't like about it is they bring out too many people that really have nothing to do with the Stones.
Yeah.
You know, like there's one where like Christina Aguilera comes out. I don't want to see her at a freaking Stones show. Okay? But at the same time, like Jack White.
But you know what? She got a great voice, and she was influenced by the Strong.
All right.
Her voice is great. The same thing like
Yeah,
Jack White.
Yeah.
He loved the Stone. That guy,
Well,
you
Jack
could tell
White
that-
Jack White came out and they did Loving Cup, and they did a good version of that. You know, the Stones have been influencing people for over 50 years. That's never going to change. And this is an album, I think, that if you haven't heard it,
You gotta hear
I'm sure
it.
if you're a Stones fan, you've heard it. But if you haven't heard it, even if you're not a Stones fan, listen to it. To me, it's a life-changing kind of album.
To me, it's a much-earned album. Like, if you're a
Yeah.
rock fan and you like rock music, you gotta listen to this album. Because this album is not only an album, this is a gift from the Rolling Stones to you people,
Yeah.
the listener. And it's not a bad song. I gotta say, this is one of the few, it's not a bad song.
It's on the jukebox at Molly's at International, and I always play tracks from it.
Great song,
Always,
great album.
Always.
And like, Mike, what's the song of the week?
Well, like I said, the song of the week will be Ventilator Blues.
And what's the album of the month?
Album of the week, Exile on Main Street. Always.
Gotta be Exile on Main
Always.
Street, a classic. I got two. You also have a version of this. Do you show the two versions you have? You have the 2010 version
Well, this
That
is
has-
the 2010
that
CD.
has a bunch of other songs
Yeah,
in
I
it.
mentioned it. Like if you look inside, you know, you got like one CD of the first of the original album, okay, and then they come out with a second
10
CD.
more songs.
Yeah, it's like a whole other album of stuff that they left
You know,
out.
when I was doing the album on Apple, they got that album.
Yeah.
They got the first album. They got the album. They got an album. They got actually 28 more songs.
That's this.
It's
not 28.
But it's another. No, they got that one, and then they got an album. They got a few more songs and videos.
Oh yeah, they put that documentary in there. I
And
think.
I was like,
think,
holy
there's a
shit,
D-
what the fuck?
Yeah, it's like
Docu-
I think it comes out. I think there's a set where you could buy with the vinyl and the CDs and the DVD. Yeah,
They got the documentary.
You gotta see that
so
documentary.
I saw the documentary. I was like, motherfucker, man, that was great.
Yeah,
Let me
definitely.
tell you, the Rolling Stone is one of those bands that
And if you wanna see what they sounded like live at that era in '72, check out the movie "Ladies and Gentlemen, the Rolling Stones." Okay,
I've seen that.
that's a fantastic. Yeah,
I've
great.
seen that. It's
Also,
great.
you can look it up. It's not like an official release because of problems they had, and also the title. But if you could find a documentary called "Cocksucker Blues," okay, which is a great fucking movie. It's just another live movie with stuff behind the scenes in there. But there's actually a song called "Cocksucker Blues" by them. Too.
Oh, yeah? Wow.
So obviously that couldn't be released in the movies, but you could find that. And "Ladies and Gentlemen, the Rolling Stones" has been officially released. It's a great movie, and it captures them at that moment. There's one scene, where they do "Happy," and you see
Happy's
Mick
such a
Jagger
great
and
song.
Rich is just trading the vocals back and forth. It's great.
such a great song.
Yeah.
So, to you people, I'm lumped up.
He's lumped up.
Mike is doing Sober January.
Yes, dry January. I am not
Right,
lumped up.
January. But once again, remember, don't get drunk.
Get
Get lumped
lumped
up
up.
and listen to the Rolling Stone, you cocksuckers.